Hi there, my name is Natalie Schaefer, and I'm the creator of The Little Things. Pain Stories is a series where I interview people from around the world to talk about their stories and journeys related to pain. I want to research and shed a light on the difficult topic of chronic pain while helping others get informed, feel understood, seen, and find support. My guest today is Maria, and I'm going to welcome her to the stage now. Hi, Maria.
Hello. Hi.
So nice to have you here. Thank you for being
Thanks
here.
you. Thanks for having me. It's an honor,
Would
truly.
you would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, my name is Maria. I am 29 years old. I live in Berlin. And I think, in terms of what this conversation is going to be about, it's also important to mention what I do for a living. So, I work in communications mostly. I am a translator and I have a master's degree in social sciences and politics. And I've been working in communications and translation for a very long time now.
Very good. Thank you so much for sharing. Um, so obviously pain stories. Can you tell us a little bit about your pain story?
Mhm. Well, it's very interesting because it's only in recent years that I've been really understanding how much of a pain story and how long this pain story has actually been. In the beginning, it was more of a condition that I didn't really pay that much attention to because partly because in my family it was given as it was a given. So my pain is migraines. I suffer from severe migraines that are very recurring, and of course we're going to go way deep into that later. But my relationship with it, or my journey with it, it actually started, now that I was thinking about it, when I was around 10 to 12 years old, that I started to have very recurring and very strong migraines from time to time. But back then, of course, when you're a child, you don't really categorize them, or probably you're not as aware of your body and how recurrent some symptoms can be as I am now. So that's how it has changed. But that's when it started. I started having very strong migraines when I was around 10, 12 years old. Um, yeah, and I was told by my family that migraines are going to be a given or a normal thing because my father also suffers from headaches and migraines. So it was considered something probably genetic or related to genetic conditions. So yeah, it's been a while.
That has been a while, actually. Yeah. And it's very interesting because you say in your family it was kind of like, oh, yeah, this is going to happen to you. Like, this is the norm. So
Mhm.
you didn't see it as kind of like a chronic or problematic thing. When did that change and why?
Um, I would say it changed when I was around 23, when I first moved to Berlin and I started working full time after my studies. That I started linking it to stress and to recurring stressful situations that triggered migraines in my body. So I started seeing the physical and somatic link that my migraines have, and that's when my journey and my relationship towards that pain started to change and shift. Because before it was more of like I said, like a given thing, like, oh yeah, I have migraines or I have headaches, and that's always going to be normal. But I never really analyzed or looked into what was triggering those migraines. Also because migraines are in general, I think, a very vague type of pain, and they're not as easily categorized, or this is what triggers them, this is what is going to solve them, or this is what's going to heal you. It's a very specific type of pain where you know how the symptoms are, but oftentimes you have to have a specialist look into it for years and years and years in order to understand what exactly is triggering them. So I didn't go to a specialist until after I started noticing those connections between stressful situations and my physical pain.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So you spend a long time of your childhood and adolescent years with migraines and kind of like not really doing anything about it. Or, I
Mhm.
mean, I guess you took
Mhm.
medicine, or,
Mhm.
yeah, how can you tell us a little bit, maybe like things that helped you then or that help you now?
Mhm.
So, how, if that has changed or not?
That has definitely changed a lot. Like when I was a child, I had migraines and I often also had to skip school because of them or couldn't really focus when I was in school. So the only solution that I knew that also my family gave me at the time was, okay, take some ibuprofen and take some medicine, take some painkillers. Maybe that's going to help. Um, but if anyone out there suffers from migraines, you probably know that migraines are not really easily solved by ibuprofen, or they're just like sometimes the only thing that helps is rest. Sometimes the only thing that helps is being completely in the dark, not seeing the light, and just closing your eyes. So that's also what I've learned how to treat those symptoms. You can be
Mhm,
preventive about them. There's something that really changed my relationship towards migraines and pain. And it was when I started getting auras. They're called auras. And that's when basically your body is telling you you're going to get a migraine. It's the stage before a migraine where you start seeing, it's a little bit like hallucinating, and you start seeing shapes and zigzags and weird lights. So your sight gets really different, and that's like an alarm signal of your body telling you, okay, their migraine is coming.
oh,
Um,
wow.
and so now I don't get auras that often, but I do get some symptoms or slight signs of
Mhm,
my body telling me, okay, you're probably going to get a migraine. So I can be preventive in terms of what I do when it comes to stress or when it comes to those triggers. I do a lot of like also essential oils. I found, the recipe of things that help me to deal with it a little bit better. Probably not always hinder or like avoid a migraine, but at least treat it in a way that I can deal with it better. So that's
mhm.
something that I have learned just myself or doing research or going to specialists, but not really when I was a child. Like I said, it started, I think I spent probably around 10 years without really noticing that I had a chronic condition. Um, and just treating it with ibuprofen, hoping that it would go away.
Yeah, I think that happens quite often actually with chronic pain. We kind of normalize things in our society. I mean, I think migraines is a really big one, but also other pains. I've talked to people
Mhm,
who tell me they have had back pain for years and they just
mhm,
like ignore it because we don't really put an emphasis on it, and we don't research and like, this shouldn't be like that. Maybe something is happening,
mhm,
and I should look deeper into it. So I think, I mean, it's very common to hear this,
mhm,
sadly, that it's kind of like a normalized thing. Like, oh yeah, I have to keep going. I have to move past it with it, or
mhm,
yeah. And I that's exactly why I'm doing these interviews as well. So pain stories for me is also
mhm,
to give people maybe that are hearing this and are like, I also experienced that and I didn't know it's a chronic condition, to
mhm,
maybe just give them like a little push and to not feel so lonely in that search.
mhm.
So yeah,
Definitely.
that yeah.
I
I
think also in our conversations personally, it's
yeah.
only when I've come to realize that it's a chronic condition. Like throughout the years, I was thinking, yeah, I have migraines and I have recurring migraines, and I started looking more into them, but not necessarily as a chronic thing. I always looked to them like, oh yeah, I get migraines, but you're
Yeah,
not aware of how often and how actually they affect your day-to-day life.
yeah,
um and that's what a chronic condition is, right? When something is
yeah.
so recurrent that it actually affects your day-to-day life, and they do in my case. So it's been really interesting to talk not only to you, but also to other people that I've met that have migraines, for example. I think migraines are often not categorized as something chronic from the people suffering them, because they think it's just a headache, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas they can be as strong as they can give you not only anxiety or insomnia, or you have to vomit, you feel ill, you feel sick, you feel dizzy. They're related to other
Yeah.
symptoms in your body that are very, very strong, but oftentimes you just don't really are aware of how strong those things are.
Yeah, I mean, migraines have to be incredibly debilitating because it's like it's your brain, right? So it's right here, everything you're thinking and doing
Exactly.
is just, I mean, I haven't had a migraine, but what I've heard, they're incredibly debilitating. And one
Mhm,
thing I wanted to mention as well is a lot of people think about chronic pain only if it's something that is constant,
mhm,
and that is a misconception. So
mhm,
chronic pain has completely a plethora of different ways of showing up. So some people actually do experience the same pain, the same intensity the whole time. Others experience it one day yes, one day no, or more in the
mhm,
mornings, on the evenings. Or it can
mhm,
also be like you're okay, and then you have a strike, a migraine, and then you're okay again. But that also means it's something, I mean, the definition of a chronic pain is a pain that is persistent for 6 or
mhm,
more months. But it's a very broad, um,
mhm,
yeah, understanding of chronic pain. And for me, it's something that like goes with you throughout a longer period of time,
yeah,
and and has an effect on your life in different parts, categories of your life. So
mhm, yeah,
yeah, I think that's one thing that is also important to mention, that chronic pain is not only like having pain 24/7. It can also
mhm,
be you're okay and then you have some pain and then it goes down again. It's like peaks and valleys. That's also chronic pain. So that's definitely
yeah.
why migraines, I consider them chronic pain.
And I think that's a very important thing to mention because a lot of the people that you talk, I think pain in general is a subject that is not talked about enough.
Mm,
Also in our generation, I think a lot of people suffer from chronic pain without even knowing that they suffer from chronic pain. And it was definitely my case for a very long time. But also, what you just mentioned is that I think we link or we associate chronic pain to conditions that are constant, that are everyday present in your life, which also are chronic pain. But what, like you said, I think chronic pain applies to a lot of conditions, and a lot of recurring things that don't necessarily have to be there 24/7 every single day of your life. And that's a
yeah,
very common misconception that I've also noticed in myself, also in a lot of my friends and acquaintances that I know that have a chronic condition without really knowing that it's a chronic condition. So it's very
yeah,
important that you're doing this, also because it can help us notice what we have and do something
yeah,
about it. I think us talking about it is also not only making people feel understood and seen, but also maybe you have some tools that have helped you, and I have developed tools that have helped me that may help others not only understanding their pain better, but also treating it or dealing with it or understanding and living with it.
yeah, definitely. And I feel like humans were so unique. And even if two people have, for example, migraines, what helps you might not help someone
Mhm,
else because it's a very unique condition. And
mhm,
maybe also the migraine is a symptom of something underlying that is completely different. So yeah, it's very interesting to hear all these stories, right?
mhm.
And to see what helps someone and maybe give some input to someone else. So on that topic, I wanted to ask you, what have you done any therapies for the migraine or?
Mhm.
I mean,
Well, I have tried a lot of things. When I started realizing that my migraines specifically are very related to stress and very related to stressful situations, to certain triggers. So I know that it's very somatic.
mhm,
When it comes to me working or me being very stressed about anything, whether it being professional or personal, it's very recurring that I have a migraine and that I have migraines more often. So when I know I have a project, for example, at work, and that I have a deadline and I'm very stressed about it, instead of having a migraine once a month, I might have a migraine every 3 or 4 days. Um, so what I've been doing in terms of dealing with that is I have psychologic somatic therapy where I also not only treat my personal and other emotional issues, but I very specifically have treated migraines as well as something that is very somatic and a very somatic reaction of my body.
mhm,
In terms of that, it's more of like stress management in order to avoid migraines. That on the psychologic part. And then on the physical, more, I would say, Western medicine part, I have gone to several specialists and I have found several specialists. Most of them recommend, because of what you said, that every pain is very individual and every story is very individual. Most of them have recommended to have a certain type of headache migraine journal where
mm,
you
mhm. Pain
every
journal.
time you have a migraine, you journal about your pain, what it feels like, how it was triggered, um, very specific symptoms and very specific questions. There are several journals online that you can find that have already been like pre-scripted, pre-written. There are written questions that you have to answer, and that has helped me to gain more insight into why I have migraines, how those migraines feel like, how I can treat them, what helps in order to treat them or to avoid them. And then there's also the component of histamine. I don't know if you call it like that in English. I think you do.
Mhm,
But it's also an approach towards not only migraines but headaches, um, that some bodies and some systems don't really react that well to histamine, which is a component of, for example, red wine or tuna or even tomatoes. And
mhm,
part of journaling is also writing down what you had for food, like what you ate during that day, in order to maybe establish that link towards histamine. I, for example, in my case, know that the moment I drink a glass of red wine, I'm going to get a headache. Not necessarily a migraine, but
mm,
in my case, or in the case of many people that are prone to migraines, it can develop, easily change from a headache to a migraine. So the things
mm,
that are linked to a headache can often also lead to a migraine. And I think a combination of all those things, like psychologic therapy, also physical therapy, or going to Western medicine specialists, that has helped me a lot to understand how to treat migraines and how to understand my own pain, my very specific case. And also in my case, since it's also very linked to stress management, things like meditation or things like yoga are very, very useful and helpful to avoid a migraine. Or in case of a migraine, there are very good exercises that I've found that I can deal with even with a migraine in order to maybe linder or to maybe make the symptoms a little bit lighter.
mm. That's incredibly useful and interesting. Thank you so much for sharing all of those
Mm,
beautiful practices and um, yeah, things that have helped you. I wanted to go deeper into the or mention again the journaling. The It's kind of like a
mhm,
pain notebook. That's how I've been told, but I think it's
mhm,
very useful for all sorts of pains or chronic illnesses to
Mhm.
get a grasp of what could be causing them. So it sounds quite
Mhm.
weird to have like a pain journal, or it sounded weird to me in the beginning, but I think it's incredibly important and it has a lot of power because of what you said. Every each body is completely different. So something that is triggering for me might not be triggering for someone else, or it might not even be considered triggering. So it's a very useful tool to kind of like sit down and see kind of like on a physical level, like how is my body doing, and then like what food have I consumed, how was my stress level, maybe
Mhm.
did I have a fight with a relative or with someone close to me, like all that emotional input as well, because we only consider
Mhm.
like what we eat, but we also have to consider what we consume in a visual and emotional way as well. That also has a big effect on our body. So
Mhm.
those pain journals are incredibly um, useful tools that anyone who has a condition, a chronic condition,
Mhm.
could use just to also explore more about themselves and what helps them and what maybe not be so helpful or
Mhm.
might like trigger something. And in the beginning, it doesn't look like you can connect dots. It just looks like, yeah, okay, whatever. But the more you do it, the more information you have,
Mhm.
the more dots you can connect. And then, like in your case, I have a glass of red wine that's immediately triggered headaches in the past.
Mhm.
So maybe not directly a migraine, but it's already like going in that direction. And
Mhm.
knowing that stress from work, like when you really wind up in work, that also is a trigger for you. And that's
Mhm.
incredibly helpful because only then can you actually do something about it, right? And then
Exactly. I
move
think
to the
in the
other.
beginning, when I started exploring that journal, the pain journal, and when specialists were like, yeah, I think we cannot really, I went to the specialist for the first time after really noticing the link and after noticing that it was more and more recurrent.
Hmm.
With, of course, with the hopes, you go to the specialist with the hope of being healed.
Oh yeah.
You go there and you're like, oh, I don't want pain anymore. You need to heal me, okay?
Yeah.
And
Give me a
I,
medicine.
especially
I'm
with
done. Like an in and
give me
out.
medicine,
Keep
I'm
it
done.
moving.
In and out. I just need a like a solution for this. You go solution
A quick
oriented
fix.
and exactly. And I went in, I was 20, 22, 23,
Mm.
and I was very annoyed. I was very annoyed at the specialist telling me, you have to journal first. And I was like, no, I don't want to journal. What's that supposed to bring me? That's not going to bring me anything. I need the medicine. I need solutions. What do you mean with journal? That
Yeah.
what? I can journal at home. Like I've been journaling and like what am I, a little child? I was very annoyed. And I didn't think
Mm.
I didn't give it really, like I didn't have the hope or the understanding of what kind of insight it would give me. And
Mm.
now I'm extremely grateful from exactly the reasons that you said, because it's just incredible how it opens up your mind towards within. You know what I mean? It's like you look within, it opens up the world towards what you feel inside, and everything that's outside, everything that is external, how it also has an effect on you. Not only, like you said, not only food, but also just visual impacts or stress or
Mm.
conversations or even just things that you notice maybe from your subconscious but are not really conscious about in the moment. So now I'm
Yeah.
incredibly grateful for that specialist telling me you have to journal. But in that moment, and I think when you have a very strong condition that like really impacts your day-to-day life and you're so desperate and frustrated, everything you want is a quick fix. All that you want is a
Yeah.
solution of like, I don't want this pain anymore. And throughout the years, you understand that it's there. You don't even know why. Maybe it is there for a reason, maybe it isn't. But it's not about the quick fix. It's about understanding why it is there, what triggers it, how you can help it. Because it's not about fixing, it's not only about making it
Yeah.
disappear, it's about how you can help it. how you can help yourself.
Yeah.
So that's been incredibly helpful, definitely.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned that because I feel like that happens to a lot of people that the quick fix, right? Like we go to a specialist and we're like, okay, give me the pill and then we're done. And I don't know if sadly or not, but like most of the times with a chronic condition, there is not going to be a quick fix. And that might sound discouraging because we are used to instant everything, right? Like instant messages, instant pleasure, instant everything.
Mm-hmm.
And with pain, it doesn't work like that, and not with chronic pain. I mean, that's just something, if it's chronified, it also means something is happening that is not only maybe in the surface, which is the first place we
Mm-hmm.
look, right? We're like, okay, my head
Mm-hmm.
is hurting, so I
My
don't know,
head,
maybe
yeah,
yeah, it's in my head, or like I didn't drink enough water, or whatever. So um, yeah, it's very funny that you mentioned that, like in that, with that story, that like that frustration that you feel when doctors are like, well, we need to see the patterns and see the triggers and see the things that are happening in your life that can be
exactly.
so many things. Um, and that is
Exactly.
actually, I love when doctors do that nowadays. Obviously, I also had a time in my life, a time period where I was completely frustrated and I just wanted someone to fix me. But now I'm so grateful when doctors are like, okay, let's dig deeper, because there isn't a quick fix for something that is so chronified. So yeah, that's that's also something to remember for anyone who's listening or watching this, to have
Definitely.
patience, and to yeah, to just like, not gonna be one thing that is completely gonna change your life, or maybe yes, but most
Mm-hmm.
of the times I wouldn't like put my hand in fire for that, but most of the times it's gonna be like a process, because also for me at least, and that's something that I always mention in these interviews, is pain is the biggest teacher, or one of the biggest teachers in life. So I feel like it is trying to teach us something when it's something that is recurring and is there, and it's like a friend being like, hey, pay
Mm-hmm.
attention.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's also, yeah, it's taking time, and patience and love
Listening.
to, be able to understand more of what is happening on the inside and
Mm-hmm.
outside. So thank you for mentioning that
Definitely.
story.
Yeah,
So
definitely. I
um
think I just wanted to mention real quick that I think for in my case, it's very stress related. And from what I know, also from a lot of people in our generation, stress is a constant. Stress has become like our constant companion in some ways. And from what I've been able to talk to people about, many people develop physical conditions related to stress, whether it's
yeah,
lower back pain, upper back pain, whether it's stomach issues, whether it's headaches. Everyone's bodies react to stress in a way that it's just our bodies telling you, okay, here, this is stressful, listen to it. Maybe you can slow it down, or maybe there's a way of handling this in another way. um, and I think our society and also the way we live has led us to not really give it the importance that it actually has, because those signals your body is giving you are very important, and it's just really literally talking to you about you maybe handling situations in other ways that can make
mm,
yourself feel better. So yeah, I think it's also been a teacher in that sense of like, when I'm stressed out, it's definitely going to let me know. My body's definitely going to let me know. And nowadays I see it
yeah,
as a teacher. Like you said, like pain is your biggest teacher. So nowadays I see it like that, as a reminder of like, hey, it's time to slow
yeah,
down.
yeah.
But yeah.
I feel like a lot of people also, and I understand why, but see pain as like, why does my body hate me? Like,
Mhm.
why? But the more
Mhm.
I the more I research about pain and the more I get into my pain, I see it actually as a friend who's telling you, and it goes hand in hand to what you just said, a friend who's telling you like, hey, this is too much and this is not
Mhm.
good for us, for you, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
befriending that pain is something very hard to do. I know, I know what I'm saying is hard, because it's not what we're used to, right? But it's something that has helped me, for example, very much. That befriending of the pain, seeing it like someone who needs your attention and or is
Yeah.
telling you like, hey, maybe here let's stop and retract. And what I found very interesting, what you said with the migraines in the beginning, was like you kind of like need to like withdraw yourself and withdraw your senses, kind of like dark rooms, no music or noises. So
Mhm.
it's very interesting if you think about it. It's kind of like your body telling you like, okay, we've had way too much input, we need to
Mhm.
get away from this, and like get away in a
Retract.
way that
Mhm.
retract, withdraw from everything to like recenter and like recharge maybe as
Mhm.
well. So I
Mhm.
find that fascinating, honestly. Like your body is
Me too.
the body is very like clear with the messages, but we are incredibly good at not listening to them.
Yeah, that's so true.
But yeah, I want to encourage people to like talk to that pain and be more curious about it. Like, okay, and take it like, I love when people tell me about their pains and they say very specific words where I'm like, why did you say that? Like,
Mhm.
like analyzing the words you
Mhm.
use to describe the pain, or if the pain would be talking to you, like what would it be saying, in what tone, with what language, what words. And those things are all information, and the more we listen, I think the more we understand.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's incredibly interesting. I wanted to ask you, what kind of things would you like people to know about chronic pain, and in this case, specific case, migraines? Maybe, for example, me, I've never experienced a migraine. Maybe someone else who's listening or watching has never experienced a migraine. What do you think it's important for people to know about that type of chronic pain?
I think in general, it's very linked to what we've talked about so far, is that everyone's case is very individual. So
Mhm.
no one's gonna have the same migraine, no one is gonna have the same back pain. And I think this is one of the biggest lessons that I've had, not only from migraines, but pain in general, is that empathy is very key. Even like when someone tells you they have a migraine and you just link it to the headache you had because you had too much to drink, um, that's not it. You know,
Yeah.
it's or when someone tells you about their chronic back pain, it's probably not going to be similar to the only experience you've had when you once twisted your back and now it hurts. You know, I don't think you
Mm.
can compare it. We always tend to try to do so because that's how our brains work and that's how we try to understand situations. But I think it's very important. Also, when it comes to migraines, a lot of people tend to consider migraines just another headache. They're going to go away.
Mm.
Um, and I think in my case and in the case of other people that I've met with migraines is that they they are a stop. They put a stop to your life. You cannot
Mhm.
function normally, you cannot work, you cannot study,
Mhm.
you cannot go outside, you cannot see the light, you cannot even look at your phone, you cannot listen to sounds. Everything is way too loud, everything is way too annoying. So it's very disturbing. It's like very interrupting of your day-to-day life, but it also stops you from functioning. So when
Yeah.
someone has a migraine, it can last a day, it can last 2 days, it can last 3 days.
Oh
Um,
wow.
in some cases that are very severe, they last up to 5 days. Luckily for me, I would say in my case, the longest one that I've had ever was 3 days, but that was more than enough. But even just that one day, what we mentioned before is that your body stops properly functioning for a whole day. And
Yeah.
that is very, very exhausting. So I think in general, when it comes to chronic pain, and not only chronic pain, but migraines, is understanding that the other person is going through a moment that is not only very disturbing and interrupting of their day-to-day lives, but also very draining.
Yeah.
And that after that, the person is going to be exhausted. So after a full day of your body fighting this pain, you're going to be exhausted, and the next day it's not going to be like you wake up and you're totally fine again. And I think when it comes to chronic pain, or specifically in this case, that it's a chronic pain that is not there 24/7, um, it's just the empathy of understanding, or trying to understand that it's a very difficult moment for the other person, whether it is a migraine or whether it is chronic pain where it's more recurrent or where it's more present in the 24/7. It's just, I think, in general, towards pain, it's very, very important to develop that empathy, to understand that
Yeah.
it's not a condition that we are probably going to experience or feel or see or like live in the same way, but that person is going through a really bad time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Definitely. Yeah, that's totally true. And what are things that maybe your friends and relatives could do to help you with that chronic pain?
Um, there are things that have helped me, and a lot of things have been in terms of stress management, where
Hmm.
my friends notice that I'm too stressed, or my relatives notice that I'm too stressed and that I'm prone to migraines. They're like, hey, are you okay? Just checking in.
Hmm.
What do you need? Or maybe just, do you want to go out for a walk? Do you want to do some yoga? Do you want to just like completely disconnect myself from what's stressing me? Um,
Hmm.
do you want to go out to eat? Do you want to cook? Do you even cooking, or even doing activities that are nothing related to my work, for example, or even it doesn't have to be work. Sometimes I'm stressed by thinking of very specific interpersonal situations or people or things in my past, personal problems. So when my friends and family help me disconnect from those and connect to other things, maybe through some more grounding experiences into the present moment, that's very, very helpful. It's
Hmm.
also been very helpful when I have a migraine. Of course, the people that are physically near me, that they just understand that I need everything to be lowered down, lights,
Hmm.
sounds,
Hmm.
movements, the way people
Yeah.
talk to me. I also become, of course, way more irritable. So when I have a migraine, I don't want you telling me everything's shit because I already know everything's shit. So maybe try to go at things a little bit lighter, with a little bit more of a
Yeah.
lighter and lower and slower attitude. That's very
Yeah.
helpful.
Okay, that's great to know. So for my last two questions, first one, is there something that you would like to talk about that we haven't discussed yet?
Mhm. Well, I I also have developed a new relationship to pain in the last couple of months because I
Mm.
broke my foot. So it's a very different type of pain. It's hopefully temporary. It's hopefully something that's going to go away and heal more easily than a chronic condition. But it definitely has also added to that relationship that I have with pain, because it has
Mm.
given me a completely new understanding of how all present, like omnipresent pain can be, when it doesn't let you sleep, when it doesn't let you move, when it doesn't let you eat, when it doesn't let you think about anything else other than your pain. And I think, I don't wish it on anyone, of course. It's been a very helpful experience nonetheless, to further my relationship, to deepen my relationship with pain, my existing relationship with pain, and with others' pains,
Mm,
not only with myself, but also to further develop that empathy that I talked about before, towards the pain of others, towards conditions of other people that live with a chronic condition, because this has been the biggest lesson of my entire life. It's been the biggest
mm,
lesson of patience, the biggest lesson of connecting and reconnecting with my body, to listening to my body, to being very, very loving and
mm,
empathic towards myself. And I think that those experiences can further enhance how we connect to ourselves. It doesn't have to be a broken foot, of course, but I think nowadays it's become even more important for our mental health and for our physical health to connect more to our bodies and to really listen to them, to really listen to what they have to say, to not go on working and functioning with several things. Like the moment you sit still and the moment you do this exercise of just sitting still for 5 minutes
mm.
and listening to what your body has to say, probably there's several parts of your physical body that are going to be uncomfortable and that are going to be in pain, or there are going to be signs of things that are not okay with your body, but you usually just ignore. So this has been a lesson of complete stillness. And in that complete stillness and in that complete moment of being uncomfortable, maybe in the beginning with that stillness, feeling or becoming more comfortable with my body and with my pain, also with my migraines. So it's been a very interesting experience. And it's more of an invitation to whoever's watching or listening to take those 5 minutes and to really ground, to really sit still or lay still and listen to what your body has to say, because it definitely has a lot to say to you.
Yeah, I love that. That's so beautiful that you see that experience, that painful experience, as something so beautiful and so like
Mm.
kind of like uplifting. I'm hearing you and I'm like, that's so wonderful and calming in a way. So
Mm.
I love that you took that experience for yourself, and you know, it's not the usual. So it's
Mhm.
you know, props for you. That's very hard to do, to take such a hard experience and such a hard thing as pain and transform it into like, I'm gonna listen to myself, listen to my body, give myself more space and time and just love, right? So I love that, hearing that from you. Thank
Well,
you for sharing.
to be honest, it's been inspired by you and our like your relationship with pain, and I think it's been the biggest lesson of how you've been sharing your story and how your relationship towards your pain has shifted. Um, because I don't think that maybe I would have approached it differently uh, hadn't I had those conversations with you about pain, and not only you, but especially you. And yeah, so I think, I mean, I've never experienced that amount of pain in my entire life. Like it's been a completely out of world experience. I didn't know that the physical body was able to experience that pain. But
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing we can do and the best thing we can do is learn from it and shift it towards what can it teach us, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely beautiful. And it kind of goes hand in hand with my last question, which is what do you believe is the superpower this pain gave you or gives you?
Hmm. I think it's a mix of patience and empathy. And I think it's been the biggest teacher in those two things, in towards myself and towards others. I think that you develop a sense of patience of, when I have a migraine and I'm just laying in bed and I'm just like, okay, please let it go away, 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 and it doesn't go away. So the patience in it lies in just laying still and being, okay, I am in pain. This is very painful. This is very uncomfortable, but there's not much I can do right now to change that. So I'm just going to listen. I'm just going to lay still, and, and I'm going to have the patience because eventually it's going to get better. Maybe it's not going to go away for good. Maybe it's going to come back, but it's going to get better. And it's definitely not going to get better with that impatience of please go away. So that's the first lesson, and that's the first superpower I would say, that you can use in many other aspects of your life. It doesn't have to be necessarily pain or physical pain or emotional pain, but just having that patience or that mindset in other aspects of your life. So that would be the first one. And empathy, like I mentioned before during this conversation, I think it's very important towards yourself, where we tend to be very hard on ourselves and be like, oh yeah, you're in pain, you're gonna get over it. You have to get over it. What's this? You're not strong enough. Are you not strong enough? And it's like, hey, you are. You're doing your best. You're great. It's gonna be okay. You're learning. This is teaching you something. So listen to it, but also be kind and also in those moments of frustration where you're just like, please just let it go away. Be kind to yourself and be loving and be like, okay, hey, it's gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay. And also with others, when to further understand their frustration and their moments of not being able to deal with pain, maybe in the most healthy way, whatever that means, and maybe helping them to to come back to themselves and to come back to that moment of just listening, laying still. And I think that's the superpower that pain has given me so far.
Yeah,
And now
those
you're
are
back.
incredible superpowers. And I love ending this series or these interviews on that note because I believe that there is just um, yeah, this beautiful thing that pain gifts us, even though it's
Mhm,
painful and it's something hard to deal with and frustrating. There is always some lesson and some
mm,
superpower that we gain from the pains in our lives, and that's how I love
mhm,
to just end the interviews. So, for anyone who is interested to further know about these series, these interviews, or my project, The Little Things, you can find me on Instagram with at the little things dot mindful. That's the little things dot mindful. And there you can find more information about pain, about my personal story, about other stories, and all the things that I've learned throughout my journey with pain. And yeah, if you have any questions or anything, don't hesitate to write me and to contact me at any point. Thank you, Maria, so much for your time and your stories and for sharing this information with us and with me. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here today and send you all my
mm.
love.
Thank you so, so much for opening this space up for people. I think it's a very beautiful and very, very important project. I'm a very big fan, and I'm also very honored to be able to share this story, because it's not your common, typical chronic condition, but it might open up people's eyes or some people's eyes and ears towards their own bodies and towards their own experiences. So thank you very, very much for inviting me.
Bye.
Bye.